Check this out.
Now, this really is a surprising story from relatively near where you live. Here in Brockenhurst, in the middle of the New Forest, is a man who can see deep into the past. I'm not talking 100 years here, I'm talking about millions of years. Furthermore, he can show us all things that we'll never see with our naked eyes in our lifetime. Greg Parker has been taking breathtaking pictures of deep space, using amateur equipment specially adapted to fit in his back garden.
OK.
His family has had to adapt to his hobby too. Helga?
Yes?
Has there been a power cut?
What do you mean, a power cut?
Well, here we are in the kitchen making tea with a torch.
Well, that's part of the joys of living in this household. There's someone who's a fanatic and taking deep space photography images.
So it's a no-light situation?
No, when Greg is outside, we don't have any lights on here.
And Greg is outside a lot. Is it a case of child of the 60s, Apollo space programme, all of the excitement that generated, do you think?
Star Trek more than the Apollo space program, but yeah, the Apollo, I stayed up all night like most people at that time and watched that, but I've been mostly driven by Star Trek.
Now, you would expect space pictures to be taken by huge telescopes, perched on mountain peaks or floating on the edge of space.
Gamma Ray Observatory to Atlantis.
Houston, no need to...
But incredibly, these pictures have been taken by Greg in his DIY observatory using a telescope that cost less than £2,000.
So what we got here is a big 11-inch reflector here at the bottom. That's normally the one that you'd use to take pictures of deep space objects, so that normally you'd use the big one. The stars, as you know, appear to move around the sky. They move something like 15 degrees every hour.
So this moves in time with the Earth's rotation?
Just as the Earth moves, this moves in exactly the same way.
To capture his deep space images, Greg experimented with a unique combination of lenses on the front of his telescope, and fitting them precisely was the key to getting sharp pictures. You see, a misalignment as small as 1/10 the thickness of a human hair would have blurred every picture. Greg hit the precise spot accidentally the very first time.
I didn't know what I was doing in the early days, but one day I actually bolted this into exactly the right position by pure chance. It means I should be doing the lottery every week, I think, because it's millions to ones against. Anyway, it went in the right position. I got these perfect round stars. But I realised that there was this position where everything turned out right.
The objects are incredibly faint, so Greg takes hundreds of separate photographs throughout a night, and it's only when they're all combined together that you can see the spectacular results. Stars begin their lives hidden away in interstellar clouds of dust and gas. This is the Pelican Nebula. But these are not just images of deep space. We're looking deep into the history of the universe. The light from these island galaxies takes millions of years to reach us across the vast blackness of space. And nearer to home, this stellar nursery. The bright stars at the centre have just been formed from the dust of this, the Rosette Nebula. Who would have thought it? Taken in a garden in Brockenhurst. It's extraordinary, isn't it? Today, Greg's images are on display to the wider world at an exhibition at Southampton University.
Fantastic. I mean, what they really bring across is the size of the universe, and so it's really humbling.
They seem very exciting. I find it extraordinary that you're looking at something that's a huge distance away, and in fact the background is just little dots, but actually bringing them out like this is really exciting.
When you look at it through the telescope, or when you take a picture with more sort of humble equipment, you see about that much. So you can see that much. It's a sort of a dim, grey, fuzzy thing in the telescope. And then people like Greg come along and they do this sort of 5 hours of exposure, and suddenly all this stuff you didn't know was there suddenly appears.
I guess my favourite's always been the Horsehead picture, really. It's got every type of nebula in there. It's got all the different objects that I like. And I guess the main reason is I had a screensaver for very many years on my computer, which I drawled over of the Horsehead, and I thought, I'm never, ever going to be able to take a picture like that. And the truth is that the one I managed to get in the end was actually a little bit better than my screensaver, so I'm very, very happy with that one.
Want you a cup of tea? He has always had a liking for astronomy. I remember each time we went on holidays, we always had to walk along the beach, very romantically looking at the stars and the black sky, and it was all very pretty. But I think the photographs are absolutely beautiful. Some are so lovely that I could almost transport myself into these pictures. They're quite inspiring. Greg brings home and shows me just the beauty of the universe.
Do you have a favourite?
Yes, it's one called M13. It hasn't got a name, but it's beautiful. The stars, just tiny little star bits, just fly at you. It's so beautiful.
M13 was the destination for an early radio signal aimed at contacting extraterrestrial life. If there is a reply, it's going to take 46,000 years to reach us. It makes you feel kind of small, doesn't it?
It makes you feel totally insignificant.
Yeah. Other life?
Other life, without a doubt. There's life, there's no question.
Another Greg out there with a telescope, pointing it back at us.
There could easily be.
Well, sadly, that's all we've got time for, but then, haven't you got homework to do? Next week, Inside Out travels all around the country to look at the impact that 600,000